Hello and welcome. We're going to do Chapter 8, Lesson 3, Simplest Form. Now we are talking about fractions, and simplest form is when we take our fraction and bring it down to the lowest equivalent fraction that we can. So equivalent fractions are fractions that name the same number, the same value. So equivalent fractions would be fractions like 3/6 is equal to 1/2. Now when we have 3/6 is equal to 1/2, 1/2 is your simplified fraction. So this would be the fraction in simplest form, because 1 and 2, 1/2 is the lowest numbers that we can make that are equal to 3/6. If we had 6/8, right? An equivalent fraction to 6/8 is 3/4, and 3/4 being the simplified fraction. That is the simplest that we can make this fraction with a 3 and a 4. So that is what we're going to be doing today. In order to make the simplest form or to simplify a fraction, we're going to be using the greatest common factor that we worked on yesterday. So on page 563, example 1 says Angie has a vertical jump height of 12 inches and Holly has a vertical jump height of 22 inches. So Angie's vertical jump is 12/22 of the vertical jump of Holly. So we have 12/22 of the vertical jump of Holly. So write the fraction in the simplest form. So it says write the fraction in the simplest form. Right, that's the direction, is write it in simplest form. So what I have to do to do this is step 1, I need to find the greatest common factor of 12 and 22. So of the numerator, and the denominator. So I'm going to make a 12. I'm going to do 3 and 4 and 2 and 2. 3 is prime, 2 is prime, 2 is prime. So I need to make my factor trees, and for 22, my factor tree would be 2 times 11. And so what do they have in common here? 12 has a 2 and 22 has a 2. Oops, that is prime. And so they have 1, 2 in common. So the greatest common factor of 12 and 22 is 2. So now that I know the greatest common factor is 2, I'm going to use that to simplify 12/22. So step 2 would be to divide the fraction with a value of 1 using the greatest common factor. So actually I'm going to take this 12/22 down on my page here. Okay, so let me write it down here. So I'm going to divide this fraction by a value of 1, and I'm going to make my 1 look here so I can write inside it like a bubble 1, so I can write inside it, but times a value, or divided by a value of 1 using the greatest common factor. So my greatest common factor is 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a fraction that equals 1 out of my greatest common factor. So if my greatest common factor is 2, I'm going to create a fraction of 1 of 2 over 2, right? Because any fraction over itself equals 1. And think about this. Anytime you divide a number by 1, you get the same number. So if I do 7 divided by 1, that equals 7. 8 divided by 1, that equals 8. So if I divide 12/22 by a value of 1, it is going to have the same value. So 12 divided by 2 is 6, and 22 divided by 2 is 11. So the simplified version of 12/22 is 6/11. And this is the simplified, my pink pen go. This is the simplified fraction for 12/22. Okay, on the next page, the example 2 says to write 18/30 in simplest form, and I'm going to turn the page because this one has more steps. So this is if you cannot find the greatest common factor. Okay, so we are going to simplify 18/30. So this is the method that if you cannot find the greatest common factor, this is what you do. So step 1 on this one would be to divide by a value of 1 using any common factor. Okay, so I can use any common factor to start with this one. So obviously, if I know 18/30, I know those are both even numbers. All even numbers have a factor of 2. So I can divide this by a value of 1, right? A value of 1, and I know this is even. So I know one of the factors of both 18 and 30 is 2. So I'm going to start by 2/2. I'm sorry if you hear my dog walking. And 18 divided by 2 is 9, and 30 divided by 2 is 15. So now I have 9/15. But the problem with this version is I have to know my multiplication so well, because I have to recognize right away that 9 and 15 have another common factor. So step 1, step 2 would be repeat step 1. If necessary, sometimes I just have to do it once, right? But in this case, 9 and 15 have another common factor. 3 is a factor of both 9 and 15. So I have to then divide by another value of 1. So let me make my big bubble block 1 here. By a value of 1, and this time it's going to be 3 using the factor 3. So 3/3, because it has to be 1. So 3/3, so 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. And I know I'm done because I have 2 prime numbers. Okay, so let's write a few you know you're done when, or you know you are simplified when. So you know it is simplified when ... when both numerator and denominator are prime numbers. Okay. When both numerator and denominator it shouldn't be both. It's just actually when numerator and denominator are in counting order. So like in the order that you count. So for instance, if I had 14/15, when I count I go 13, 14, 15. Or 35, 36. When I count, I go 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. So any counting order, I know that I'm done. If there is a 1 in the numerator, I know I've simplified all the way down. And the last one is kind of the most complicated one. It's the one where it really requires you to know your multiplication, which is if the numerator and denominator have, sorry, I always make a mistake, I can't get away from it, have no common factors other than 1. So if 1 is their only common factor, then it's already simplified down. Obviously, it doesn't do us any good to divide by 1 over 1, because we would just get the same exact answer. These are going to be important to you. These are going to be, as you're simplifying, you're going to have to stop and go, okay, are the, like this one up here, are both the numerator and the denominator prime numbers? Okay, I'm done. Are they in counting order? Did I get 14/15 as my answer? Okay, done. Do I have like 1/5? Right? Done. Do they have no more common factors? That's the more difficult one, right? Where you really need to know your multiplication facts. Okay, good luck on simplifying.